Maybe Jane, the agendas are part of our other agenda, so you need to, yep.
I don't know. No. The last one we picked up.
So welcome to the Galvez County Board of Health. We'll call this meeting to order at 10:04. I'd like to read a brief statement first. Parents have lost the rights to our children's health care. Last week, the state of Washington stripped away the parent right for consent for a child 13 years or older to authorize gender-affirming treatments, including life-changing hormone therapy, castration, and surgical body alterations. These procedures can now be done without a parent's authorization and without a parent's even knowing it. Doctors have long understood that at approximately 13 years, the developmental stage of puberty is a pivotal point in maturity and one's sexual awareness. This human stage of puberty creates vulnerability to issues of self-esteem, identity, etc. Who and what am I? Am I normal? Etc. These feelings are very normal. This stage passes usually with some emotional difficulty, but will resolve, and most can accept who and what they are after going through puberty with family support. This vulnerable time of mental challenges is not the right time to be suggesting a child change their birth gender. It is the worst time. Nobody should make monumental decisions at this emotional stage of development, and certainly not the government. Allowing children under 18 to make such life-altering decisions, especially without a parent's involvement, is cruel, wrong, and seems criminal. I believe this irresponsible law should be reversed and the rights of parental control should be maintained until 18 years old or when one's mind and body have matured enough to make such life decisions. Parents of Cowlitz County need to know this is real. It's happening now without your knowledge, and it's dangerous to the physical and mental health of our youth. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, old business is to accept, we have two meetings from March 1st and March 8th. The minutes of the past meetings. I've read them. I hope you've all received them. They did come a little bit late, but I would entertain a motion to accept them.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second, anybody? Can a chairman second?
I'll second.
Thanks. So the motion is the motion on the floor is to accept the past two minutes or past two meetings minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, myself, aye. It passes unanimously. Okay, would the staff like to come up if you'd like? Oh, it's optional. Carol and Gina in the HHS department have been working on a public service announcement. And there was, well, you want to talk about it a little bit? Just tell us what it was and that we have a winner, and it's a very short video that we'd like to play for you.
Good morning, Carol Harrison. I am the Director of Cowlitz County Health and Human Services. We did a PSA contest, so a contest where folks could submit public service announcements. They could do that by a video, a poster, a poem, whatever they chose. We did a judging of those entries, and we had a representative from the Board of Health there. So thank you to Lindy for helping us with those. And it was pretty much unanimous that the winner was two young men that are high school seniors here in the Longview area, and their names are Jasper and Ethan. And they produced a video about healthy eating or healthy habits. So I think the clerk of the board has a link to the video to play. It's great. I think you'll love it.
Sam? Well, they're basically talking about the meal that they prepared. And they're talking about how healthy it can be.
Is there
And
a
at the
bill?
very end, they throw in, don't do drugs.
Could you not hear the audio on that?
No, we cannot.
I can try it again.
Yes, please.
Can you hear it now?
Go ahead, play. No. Got some technical difficulties here, but those are the winners, and I believe there's some kind of something happening at the city council for them.
Yeah, I believe the Longview City Council will be acknowledging them at their meeting Thursday night. And if you want to see the video and actually hear it, it is posted, pinned at the top of our Facebook page, and it's also on our county webpage. So you're welcome to go view that. It's pretty great. And like Kelly said, they did at the very end of it, end it with "Don't do drugs," which we thought was great.
It was
So,
very cute.
two great kids. We came, gave them a plaque and thanked them, and had a little ceremony at the office. So it was great to see them and to see their passion and their excitement.
And thank you to Lindy for going to help judge the competition.
I appreciate the health department working on that. It's a good start. And we need
Yeah,
to keep
and
working on
we're
it.
excited to do it again. We learned a lot, and we'll do it again. So it was in honor of Public Health Week, which was the first week of April.
Thank you.
So moving on from that, did you have something else too?
I think it was just to talk about prevention coalitions, and that's, you have that at the bottom of the agenda.
Go ahead. We'll take it out of order
Do
because
that now?
I'm a little
Okay.
out of
I
order.
think I'm gonna give this one to Gina. She has a little bit more knowledge on the prevention coalition.
I know there's been a little bit of interest from this group in youth activities, and I think maybe some of you maybe have reached out to these coalitions. There's 3 different prevention coalitions. When I say prevention, I mean substance use prevention, and sometimes you hear the term mental health promotion that work with youth in our area. There's one in Castle Rock called the Castle Rock Cares Coalition. There's one in Kelso called Highlander Hope. And there's one in Longview called the Epic Coalition. And they work with the schools and do some different youth prevention activities within the schools, sometimes involving parents where they have parent education nights and things like that. So there was some interest about those groups and what they're doing. So we just wanted to offer, if the board is interested in hearing more about that and hearing more from these groups about what they do in the community, we're happy to, facilitate inviting them in to share some information about their coalitions and what they do. So
Gina, could we have just a summary of the youth summit that was done a couple Fridays ago for the 6th graders in Cowlitz County?
So I don't know a lot about the breakout sessions, but I'll share these coalitions partner together and put on a youth summit each year in the spring. So they invite, it's like a day-long event where they invite middle school students from the area. Not every middle school student, the schools kind of select, from my understanding, the schools select middle school students that could benefit from some additional leadership or confidence building or education around substance use or some education or how to say no, things like that. So they invite these middle school students in to spend the day at this event to attend different breakout sessions, hear different information, hear from speakers, connect with each other as peers, those types of things. So they just had that summit here in the spring. It's happened every year for quite some time. I don't know if you had more you wanted to share about that.
I was just happy that they let me come in and it was well organized and I thought the kids benefited a lot from it.
Yeah,
So I'd like to see that done every year, continued.
Yeah.
Well worth the effort.
good.
So thank you for that. Anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman, just a question in general. So do we have thoughts on how we want to proceed with PSA? Do we just occupy airwaves or websites, or are we going to measure something, tie it in? In most of our actions, I'd like to see something ahead that says, this is what we plan to do. And these are the measurements that we're going to make, or the metrics, and then we're going to, so in other words, have a plan so that we just don't throw stuff on the wall.
I agree wholeheartedly, and we're going to come to that in the next section here when we talk about the advisory committee, and that's who will hopefully help develop these plans. So we previously advisory committee to the Board of Health was kind of established, but that has been we've been reworked, and so we're going to talk about the bylaws. I submitted a change to the Board of Health and to our attorneys to do one modification to the bylaws. And I don't think it's printed out, but in a nutshell, instead of the chairperson having the power to create a committee and to nominate or to set the chairperson of the committee, I've taken that out and we're going to do it by a vote of the board. So at this point, you've all seen the bylaws, or the board has seen the bylaws. So I'd entertain a motion to accept that change of just eliminating that one power.
I'll make that motion.
I second that.
So again, the motion is to now enable committees to be set up by the board and not by the chairperson. Any discussion on that?
I guess my only thought is that hopefully the Board of Health folks will have enough time to take a look at, a good look at who is appointed. We have a time to understand what their mission is and what their goals are in terms of the Board of Health, and not make immediate decisions.
So any further discussion? So we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It was too fast, so it was unanimous. It was passed. Thank you for that. Okay, so now that that has been established, so then I would like to entertain, there's going to have to go through a few procedures here. Entertain another motion to establish a committee. This is going to be an advisory committee to the board. We named it the Policy Review Committee to be vague. And I would entertain a motion to reestablish a committee, the Policy Review Committee by the board.
I did have a question about the proposal for the committee. Will the committee be holding public hearings and entertain comments from the public?
They, from what I've talked with the lawyers, they can have input from everywhere and their reports will go directly to us. So they report to the board and they're only advisory.
And the goal for this committee is to do what?
That's on the next step. We're gonna, once my idea was we establish the committee and then we'll charge the committee with a few things to look at. It's basically the same things we've talked about before, but well, I'll name a few things off. There was the CHIP report from 2014. There's a big, long report that we've kind of looked into. That's a good place to start. There's some things on the website that needs to be changed. How to combat youth depression and suicide in our county. Those are just 3 things, but there's a whole bunch of different things that we can look into.
I guess I'm a little confused as to. It would appear that would be a duplication of effort. Why wouldn't we be reviewing those issues and making a decision? Because we do
Well,
everything
have
in
you-
public and
Have you
that's-
found any problems on the website? On the HHS website, for example? You've been here longer than me. I find all kinds of problems. So that's why I say we gotta, if none of us are doing it, I can't do it all. So that's why I would like to establish a committee to do that and they can look into it more and with input from all of us to tell them, hey. So I'm already gonna tell them, hey, look here, look here, look here, and then you too, everybody can have input and to direct the committee.
So following up on Mr. Weber's comments, would that not be a good utilization of staff? Is that not their responsibility to, our responsibility to provide leadership and direction to staff and say, we've got some issues with some of the, I don't know if it's the organization or the content or the structure of the website. Can you folks work on that and report back to us?
Well, I think they do a lot of that. For example, one of the topics is how to combat youth depression and suicide in the county. Well, you guys are already kind of working on that, right? If I just say, do that, would you be able to come back and with a report on how to do that? I was thinking more like a committee would be able to direct it. Arnie, you have a comment?
Yeah, if I might say, how many of us are here? Half a dozen. We got 112,000 people in the county. Part of the advantage of a citizen advisory board is that we're not omniscient or omnipresent. So it doesn't seem unnatural to me to ask the citizens to partake in this effort.
You know, I agree because I've had people talk to me about ideas, but I think it would be helpful if they shared them personally and elaborate on them because I can't probably bring as much passion or idea to a work session that another person could express and give examples and more history and things that might be a benefit to a decision that might be made by the group. So I do like the idea of inviting citizens. It's just kind of how would we do it? And that's kind of what we're talking about today, I think.
The proposed motion on the floor is to establish a committee, an advisory committee. And I'd like to ask one,
Now, I have another question, if you don't mind. So is this body here going to provide the direction and the leadership to that
lawyers already answered you on that
To-
one.
to that.
Yes,
So we'll-
absolutely.
huddle as in the public and say, we would like the first topic that the advisory committee tackles is the website, for example, and then we'll provide that, whatever they need. And I guess, again, I want to go back to staff because I don't want to undermine staff's responsibilities. And so I would assume what's the relationship between the advisory committee and staff, I guess?
None, I guess. They would probably consult the staff, I'm sure.
But it seems like we could talk to HHS if they're at the foundation with the funding and so forth. We would ask, maybe the advisory group would ask you folks for some information and act as consultants to decisions to see if they would be possible to even approach working on.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've seen you folks as being a resource to at least myself in
Yeah, no,
thinking.
you guys have done a lot of work. I think it's just now we get the public to kind of look at some other things and not just throw it all back on the staff. And with public input, they have different viewpoints. More brain power. Not more than you, adding brain power.
Do you folks feel it would be useful to have a citizens group with community ideas? Would that be helpful to guide your funding in the way that would be community-based ideas or?
Boy, that's a loaded question. How can you answer that?
I'm asking it. We'll see.
It's always helpful to hear from folks and to hear what their concerns are, to hear what would be helpful to them or useful, you know, in terms of our website, to, you know, what information do they want to be able to find easily. We're always happy to talk through those pieces and be a resource for whomever has questions or wants to learn more about what we do. Just, you know, I know this board knows that, but we take direction from our leadership. And so we would just, you know, if we're working with an advisory committee, we would just need to come back and connect with our leadership on how we move forward.
And it'd be the same with the advisory committee. They get their direction from the board.
So how many committees do you work with already? I think we have a Veterans Advisory Committee, Housing and Homelessness Task Force.
Yeah.
And do you still have a Behavioral Health Advisory Committee?
No, we
that-
just have those two advisory
Just those
groups.
two?
Mhm.
And then I would mention too that we'll talk about details of the committee. The only thing I would say is it would have some kind of a sunset clause. So it doesn't go on in perpetuity forever. We cut it after a certain amount of time. So.
Well, actually, I do like sunset clauses, but it's kind of de facto in there, just as we can create, we can take down, so.
Take it down to, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I was thinking just be kind of nice if they knew they're on a time limit. But we can take it away and extend it as well. So you're right, not necessary.
Well, I know the citizen members of this board are under a time limit. Right? It's
Right.
1 year. Is it it's a 1 year term or a 2 year term?
It's two.
Do,
So I would think the committee would have to be no more than two because.
that probably sounds like a good number.
So
So I'll put it to a vote. All in favor of forming the new advisory committee, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Myself say aye. All opposed? I think that was unanimous. So
Easy there. Is it unanimous? If somebody doesn't speak, I would call
Oh,
that an
are
abstention.
any abstentions? No, I think everybody said yes. Okay. We got that. So,
So will you be soliciting applications for membership on the advisory committee or will you be appointing them?
no, I think, I'd like to propose that the same chairman that was before, I nominate Dennis Ott to be the chairperson again. He's a great thinker. He is he can read more than almost anybody I know. He's a great thought processor and he keeps things focused on topic. So I would propose.
I'll make that motion.
So the motion on the floor to maintain Dennis Ott as, or to reestablish Dennis Ott as the chairman of the board. Is there a second? You second, you got to turn your mic.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I have to raise an objection just in terms of the process. We've created a committee. Apparently, you've already selected members to be on the committee, or are we going to ask people to
No,
participate?
that's still open. The
So-
selection of the people are still open, other than I proposed the chairperson, or
Well,
aren't proposed.
to me, a better procedure would be to make the offer available to the public to send in applications, look at the applications, and make our choices before you start off by saying who a chairman would be. He might or might not want to do it. We haven't seen an application from him for the advisory committee. So I want the procedure to be fair, make sure everybody has an opportunity to participate.
Can you define what fair is?
Fair would be what is determined by this board in terms of the
Okay, so,
application process. So
so we do have a motion to appoint Dennis Ott as the chairman of the committee.
So let's keep that motion, hold it for a second. Is there anybody else that you'd propose?
Propose Diane Cooper to serve as the chair of the board.
Has she expressed interest in this?
She absolutely has, and she's been, I believe she's been in touch with you, and she's also been in touch with Mr. Ott, I believe.
This procedurally is going to be interesting, but I do want to state that I have for a long time spoken against having people with vested interest in advisory boards or even in these boards. The idea is that we want the experts in charge, and we are where we are today because of the experts. Do I need to say the COVID-19, for example, or the opioid crisis? And the experts have been managing this for a very long time, and in my opinion, have failed. So I would like us to consider not taking people who are already in the business or have already spent a large amount of time trying to answer these questions, because they have failed.
It's time for some new perspectives, not going back to the same old good old boys network.
I agree.
So let's move on to the only motion that's set so far is for Dennis Ott to be the chairperson.
I'm sorry, can I make one more comment? So I guess I'm going to probably vote no on this because I do think that it makes sense to invite more of the public to throw their name into the ring, into the hat, to be a part of this and to serve as a leadership position for this. And by appointing somebody that's been pre-selected, I think that that's not giving the community at large an opportunity to participate.
Yeah, if I may, let me remind you, we had several candidates for the board, and he was in one of those spots.
Yeah, he's applied, he's expressed interest, he's been part of the process since I got here. So we'll take a vote. All those in favor of reestablishing Dennis Ott as the chairperson, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
4-2, the motion passes. And I would like to just add that we would like to speak with this Diane, you said, and have her have some input into it.
Well, except Diane has been intimately involved with all of these things that I just railed against, and it's like, do I have to repeat what I said?
No.
No.
So with that said, so now we have the commission, or excuse me, the committee, the advisory committee is established, the chairman is established. I have a procedural question now. Do we need to make motions to say what to do for each individual thing to look at? We've already talked about it several times. I brought it up many times for the last 6 months or so. And some of the ones I just read off were the CHIP report, the website, and how to combat youth depression, and the HYS survey, the Healthy Youth Survey was something else that they could look into. So
And Mr. Chair, and drug awareness prevention.
drug awareness
Big
is
time,
also on there
big time,
too.
please.
So let me ask this, those 5 things we just mentioned, does anybody oppose any look of the committee looking into those?
So I guess I don't have any opposition to that. My question is, if you say to the chair and to the board, I want you to look at the 2014 CHIP report, what product are we looking for from them looking at it? An analysis, an abstract, what are we looking, because that's where do they go with that? And what do we want from them? So I think that listing those 5 things sounds wonderful, but I think that we need to drill down and say, give these folks a task and not here's a document that's 10 years old. And then what?
You know, Mary Jane, I think you would be a wonderful resource on this advisory committee because you've got some great ideas. about how to tackle some of these things.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that, but I guess if we're going to have a conversation about what responsibilities we're going to give that, the advisory committee, I think that we need to be more precise.
Well, I would say then they would look into the CHIP report and pull out the valuable information that could be used.
Why aren't?
Well,
we doing
except,
that?
do you really want to be doing this extemporaneously? Wouldn't you want us board members to go back, put down our priority list with arguments along each side, and in the next board meeting, we decide what it is we're gonna task the advisory committee?
That's a good idea too. That way we can all go home and think of some things and come back to the next meeting and propose charging the new committee with that.
Yeah, and then we will throw each item up into a vote. Actually, there might be interesting to prioritize the stuff there, but Mary Jane is spot on. Let's do what I mentioned earlier. Look at this, we expect you to achieve this, and
With some metrics.
there was a little bit of negotiation there, but
Okay, I like that idea as well. So for the next board meeting, we will discuss, and I hope all of the board members can come and contribute something to what the committee should focus on. I would think that some of the things might be duplicates with each other, but if we find six different.
it's as good because we need the votes to
Yeah.
pass any one of them.
Well, and we want the community to speak at the microphone too, your priorities. We hope, that's our wish, at least my wish, I'm sorry, this is my opinion, that I'd like you to come forward and say what you're concerned about, if you have any concerns.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, trying to squeeze this meeting or our board meetings on a Tuesday, like we're doing now,
Yeah,
it's going to be problematic.
I just talked to the clerk about it and we've got a new idea. So we're working on that. Because yes, it's Wednesdays is the new idea.
Wednesday's a new idea? Okay, are you thinking Wednesday?
She said at 10 o'clock is available. There's nothing there, nothing scheduled.
Okay, if we really want to make this publicly available, I think we've got to choose a different time.
Earlier or later?
Earlier probably doesn't do the job. Maybe during the lunch hour, that'll show you who's really dedicated. Maybe at 5:30 on some day.
Let's keep talking to the clerk and we'll find something that works for everybody. So at this point, I'd go ahead and open it up for public comment. Hello,
So,
welcome.
on the advisory board, which I thought you guys were appointed to do that job, so now I'm kind of confused. On the advisory board, how does somebody express interest?
Send me an email. Send me an email. I'll give you my card.
Thank you.
Get the card out. I'm thinking you are interested, yes?
No,
Oh, yeah, send the clerk an email or myself an email, any kind of interest.
It's probably best to have it sent over to the clerk and
Yep, I agree. So send the clerk an email. I don't need any more emails. I just expressed interest in some contact information.
I think maybe Mr. Weber would ask us to do a little more formal interview process like we do other ones. I wanted a seat in place. We have that. But it should be on the website. This is an advisory board that exists. I think at the moment, without us knowing exactly where we're going with that, I wouldn't put any more rules there, except I'd make it go through the process.
So you're thinking like an application thing, a couple of
Yeah,
questions?
we've got a standard application
Yeah,
form.
yeah, that, and put that up on the website. That's, yeah, I like that idea too.
So,
They were, I think he said there's a standard application already.
Correct, so you already appointed the chair, should every board member have to do that application before we appoint?
Or, well, according to the lawyers, that was not necessary. Yeah, the lawyer said that it's a purely advisory board. They don't have power to pass laws. All they're going to be doing is looking into some things that we tell them to look into and hopefully providing a report that we can act on afterwards if we want to. Please.
Thank you. I wanted to address your opening salvo about the new law and taking rights away from parents. The one thing I want to add on the record is that Scandinavia was one of the first countries to start doing these hormone blocker treatments and surgeries on children. They have absolutely stopped because they found that it caused, long joint dysplasia. It caused all sorts of conditions, lower IQ, and all sorts of osteoporosis. Just a number of devastating illnesses came out of the hormone blocker treatment. Then top it off, the surgeries, they found that there was a significant amount of regret when the children become adults and they go, wow, I should have thought this through better. And they also have screened with dysphoric people their ties to other kinds of things like depression, autism, family dysfunction, because a lot of them actually have other issues that aren't screened. And that to me is a real issue. And I don't think any of that was addressed at the state legislature, and it's not being addressed in the media here at all. And England also has stopped doing these surgeries and these treatments for the same reason. And there's tons of lawsuits going on right now in the country from now adults who have gone through the treatment and regret it and feel they were pushed into it without proper screening. The other thing I wanted to talk about is as far as PSAs, how about immune building, like teaching people how to build up their immune system so they can fend off illnesses better? Because I never see any of that advertising going on. It's mostly it's vaccinate somebody or get them on drugs or whatever, but very little education about not only just nutritional knowledge, but also how to supplement that intelligently, like with vitamin D3. A lack of vitamin D3 is significantly related to poor immune function in people who are chronically ill. That's found out, that's demonstrated. And zinc is proven to be an antiviral for many decades. Never talked about, hardly ever in the regular media. So anyway, I wanted to add those thoughts. And I'm also interested possibly being on that committee. Thank you.
Very good comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, where are we standing on my motion about the mental health tax and repealing that? As was explained to me at this last meeting, I was at this one. You guys are the ones that, at the board, not you guys, but made that tax, no vote of the people. It's my understanding you can end that tax. So,
That's
what about it?
a Board of Commissioners decision, not a Board of Health.
We can't do that.
Really, you mean you guys, so we can switch back over and you guys can chop that tax down then? Is that what I'm understanding? I thought the board set it up. The last meeting I was at, Dennis had a lot to say about that and,
Well, the Board of
I'm
Health
sorry,
can certainly have
Commissioner
input
Weather.
into it, but the decision whether institute that tax or keep it going is by the Board of Commissioners.
all right, so we can still get this done today then. So your board recommendation is to end the tax. Good, I understand now. Thank you.
It's on the on my list to talk about is the mental health tax. What we had talked about last time is we were going to have some of the people from the drug court to come in and kind of tell us, is it working, if it's not working? And at that point, I think we would be able to make a decision to then kick it over to the Board of Commissioners. Not trying to delay it. I actually work much faster than the government works. I keep finding myself putting the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse. And so at this point, we've discussed it briefly, the mental health tax. I've talked to some of my constituents about it as well. And I think we just need to get some of the professionals that work with it to kind of give some comments as well.
If I may, I just wanted to share, we've had some conversation with the Board of County Commissioners about that and what we're planning on doing. We've had some communication go out to departments who receive the mental health tax funding. They're going to be working with the clerk to schedule time during the Board of Commissioners Wednesday workshops. So those will be open to the public, as well as Board of Health members can attend or log in and listen to the conversation and presentation. So they'll be scheduling those and coming to share about their programs.
Can you make sure that you take a second and shoot us an email so that we have it on our calendars as well?
When they get scheduled, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll get, yeah, we'll come back to that, circle back to that whole issue, because it's a big one. I agree. Did you want to say something, Lindy, regarding going back to what one of the public just said, someone in the public just said, and Lindy had a comment too.
Well, the mental health tax, I don't know if it can be moved to be used for other things. Is drug addiction recovery, is that part of the use that money could be used for? This is like a work session. I'm just asking her a question, but.
Yeah, the RCW says mental health treatment. There we go. Chemical dependency or mental health programs and therapeutic courts.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
And Lindy, did you want to say something else about, you mentioned another comment?
Well, the transgender issue to me, it sounds like a magic bullet that's supposed to fix everybody with their issues that are coming along in the schools, because the schools have a big problem. So the magic bullet phrase came along last night and I thought, sounds like a magic bullet that we're looking for to fix all these problems. And transgender changing, I don't think is the answer to everyone's problem. But it seems like it's a huge agenda for so many school counselors and governmental agencies right now. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, public comments on that? Or any comment, any topic?
Well, I'm just a layman here, EMT basic, and I've had formal training. I'm an expert in 3 months, according to my doctors. But are you discussing a committee that deals with substance abuse?
At the committee, one of the things that we've talked about is to talk about public service announcements or assemblies in schools for drug awareness and drug resistance for kids.
And that's the committee you're talking and discussing about right now.
That's one of the things that they would do, to look into how we can prevent kids from, well, what I said is that, remember the old DARE program?
I'm familiar with that.
Something like that, but just in our county, something like that to help the kids understand the vaping, tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, opioids, fentanyl, a little of everything.
being an ex-EMT firefighter, I go back to the good old carbon monoxide. I'm used to that with an air pack. But you discussed individual named Dennis Ott. He isn't a former attorney, is he?
I believe so.
Have you investigated him? You should.
Talk to him.
No, you should. His father went to school with my mother in 1944 at this university. He was a DVM. Great.
How
great vet.
about we talk about that offline if you want a private session? I think that's probably the
Well,
right thing.
I-
We're not here to assassinate anybody.
Yeah.
Well, you, when I heard the name, tell you the truth, I'm shocked.
Well, thanks for that comment as well. Last item on the, that I have here, or please, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow getting up here, but I've just always thought if you're gonna have an advisory committee, there's nothing wrong with letting that committee have some autonomy to come up with something new. Otherwise, you get, again, just what you said, a frustration of doing the same thing the same way, getting the same results. You've established a chairman already. There may be people in the public, people wanting to serve who don't like that guy. Okay. When I've been involved in forming advisory committees and such, that committee can come together as a group and discuss it. And they should come up with a chairman and come back to you and say, this is how we would like to go forward. It isn't, you can't give them some direction to get some help in getting more information. That's fine, but I don't think I would limit them too much. Because you start telling them exactly what you want them to do as an advisory committee, then they're doing your job for you. You know, so I would just caution, just be a little more open with that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I agree that they should have autonomy, and according to the lawyers, that's what they have because they're an advisory committee.
Correct.
They do have to look into lots of things. There's a question on Zoom here.
Hi, I'd just like to make a public comment. Thank you. I appreciate that you're trying to create an advisory committee to, you know, get additional kind of eyes and ears on topics that are important to the health of Cowlitz County. I think that is valuable to do. But I am concerned about the way that the committee is being established. You've had one of your Board of Health members make sort of a blanket statement that people that he considers to be in the system, quote unquote, not really clearly defined, wouldn't be able to participate except maybe making a public comment. They wouldn't be allowed to be committee members. I haven't heard that clearly discussed or defined, but that seems like you're definitely going to be limiting the input you can have of people that might want to contribute to your advisory committee. I think there are good reasons to include members that have historical knowledge or experience working in the local systems that are the way that we provide health and safety to our local community. I don't know why you would sort of tacitly exclude those people from participating in your committee. So it doesn't seem like you're making an open invitation to everyone. You're only inviting people that share your opinion. And when a different person's name was offered as someone who might be wanting to participate, that one of your Board of Health members identified and said was definitely interested, you didn't even take a motion on including them in your committee. So it just seems like you're not really setting this up to be an open and welcome call. It feels like you already know who you want and what perspectives you want to have represented. And if people disagree with that, they can come and make a public comment, but they will not be allowed to be members of the committee. And I think that's unfortunate. Thank you.
I'd have to,
if I may.
yes.
Mr. O'Neill, you misunderstand a great number of things related to this.
Mr. Mortensen, I thought we were allowed to be anonymous in this forum. Why are you identifying me?
It's on the screen.
My apologies, on the screen, it's got your name.
You typed it in.
Okay, go ahead. We meaning the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Health receive hundreds of inputs from what I would call the established service providers. They often have a clear idea what they wish to accomplish, but they do so at a price. In other words, they're trying to sell their services. They can be very intimidating to someone who is a citizen without a degree in nursing or an MD or anything like that. Yet I trust the people are smart. So part of my commentary is I don't want anybody, and this is my vote, not yours or not anyone else's on the committee. I don't want people on there who already have had plenty of opportunity for a long time to fix a system and they have failed. I do not want to intimidate the public. I want to encourage the public to come out and speak. You kind of assume that because there's a committee there that in fact they've got some power or standing before the board. Frankly, I don't really understand that. It's a committee where we're saying we would like you to do some work for us. But you can form your own group, and come before the board, kind of like you've done before. And that's okay. But you're not including that perspective in the committee that is intended to inform the Board of Health. You're saying if you have a perspective that we don't like, you have to go form your own committee that is outside of the public process. And I don't think that's inclusive.
No, I'm not saying that, but I will say that that's what typically the service providers do offer. Well, their response to a lot of practical questions, I'll go to the COVID-19 one, is, oh, you just simply don't understand, honey. Just listen to us. Just follow the science. We'll take care of you. We have had enough of that nonsense.
I guess I'm thinking if you're talking about children's mental health, you'd want people that are involved in the children's mental health system to be participating in your official public health advisory committee. That's all I'm saying. And you're saying that because they have offered services, they haven't fixed the entire system on their own, they're ineligible to participate because you don't want them there. And I think you're missing perspectives that would be valuable, especially people who have detailed knowledge of how you actually do help youth with mental health issues in our community, because they've been doing that for decades. I think those are perspectives that would be valuable to include. Thank you.
Exactly, and they've been doing that unsuccessfully. At this point, I'll turn it back over to the chairman because
I would just add that we are going to be using the experts. We have the entire HHS of Calais County Department available. Furthermore, the chairman of the committee has specifically spoken with you and was interested in working directly with you as a committee input. So I don't know where you're coming from exactly. So we have another person at the public. Thank you for your comment. And now we have at the podium, please.
You said the correct word, the public. Please remember that all the great thoughts that you have and we've seen in society represents the best of us in the total public. And these special interests and efforts are taking us further and further down the hole.
Thank you. Any more comments? I don't see any hands up. The last item on the agenda is We do have a little extra time, but I don't know how much extra time. But one thing was just the RFQ for the health officer. Do you have that? Is that in process or?
It is in process. We did an initial draft and it is in the hands of legal currently for review.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. You have a draft? Have you sent it out?
We haven't sent it out. We sent it to legal for review.
Oh, thank you.
And
Okay.
there it is. So.
Okay, thank you for that update. Lawyers. Well, I have a question because I missed a couple of commissioners meetings. The recycling center that is way out in West Longview that has been permanently closed. Has anything been done with that? Does the recycling center have an obligation to recycle? I think it has been a health hazard. That's part of the reason why they say they closed it, but now everybody's just throwing all their recycles in the trash. Oh, okay, I'll ask them. Other than that, does anybody else have any comments? Well,
You know, I'd like to see the public come up with an idea about social media in the schools because it's a very difficult problem. And I wish there was a think tank that could figure out how we take those little cell phones away from the kids at school during the school day. I think that will, without causing trauma to the whole group, but there must be some way that we can do this to help our children concentrate on school instead of their cell phones, just during the school day. I'm not talking about all day long, 24 hours.
yep, it's been proven social media does lead to depression.
During education.
If I may, I wanted to follow back up on the Prevention Coalition conversation.
Please.
Did the board want us to reach out to any of those groups and see if they wanted to come present to the board about what they're doing or no? It's fine either way. I just wanted to get direction.
What do you members of the board think about that?
You know, to me, we're still in the learning phase. So to me, it makes perfect sense if we're going to be providing direction to the advisory committee that we learn as much as we can about what kinds of committees you guys work with.
Yeah, I'd like
So-
to hear the coalition.
Okay.
Each group.
Great idea. Thank you very much. I got it noted and I'll get back to that on the next agenda.
So,
I'd like,
Mr. Chairman, I think you mentioned earlier in the meeting something about a CHIPS assessment, community health
a
assessment.
report from 2014.
And what's the latest status? Is that being updated at all? And what would be the role? It seems to me that ultimately our goal is to be setting public health priorities. And we ought to be doing that on the basis of data that's collected on the status of things in the community and with public support, but we don't have that data yet. And it seems like, I think this meeting has been kind of evident of kind of spinning our wheels. We spent an hour and we haven't done anything. We haven't done any prioritization at all. And it's kind of a waste of time. But maybe that's because we haven't started with an updated report and maybe we need some time to get that updated. And I'm not sure where we are on that.
But it hasn't been updated since 2014. It was presented to me. It's about 100 pages or so. I've read through it. There are a few little things in there that are interesting, in my opinion. Mr. Ott has read through the report as well, and that's why he wanted to talk to one of the public people about that further. But apparently, it was set up in 2014. It's a long report. There's a lot of work went into it. A lot of time went into it. And well, here we are 9 years later, nothing's happened with it. So we're picking up the torch, I guess, picking it up and gonna see if we can get something out of it. I don't know if going back to that CHIP process again makes any sense since nothing happened the last time.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mrs. James wanted to say something.
I just was going to add, I know when when we were part of that before, it was a lot of work. It was a big process and, meeting with community stakeholders, getting input from public, all of those things, putting, to get the information to put together in a report. That work happened out of kind of a section called Healthy Communities within our office, which is no longer part of our office. But if we wanted to look at doing some of that type of work, we could certainly talk about what that would look like, what our capacity is, and how we would be able to accomplish that. So we're happy to have that conversation if there's an interest in doing that process again.
I think it'll be one of the things the committee should focus on, at least look into it.
It seems to me like there are several different entities in our community that do an assessment, a public assessment and a health assessment. I believe that Peace Health has one that is certainly more recent than 2014. And so it would make sense to kind of survey the community and see who else has done those assessments. I know Pathways 2020 always did an assessment and had quite a bit of data gathered. So there may be stuff out there that's certainly more current and more relevant to our community than 2014. And so you don't know how much energy you want to spend on old data if there's some better, newer data out there.
Maybe Mary Jane, that would be something you could bring to the next meeting, that report?
Happy to contact the folks that I know, but I also believe that staff probably is aware of most of those as well. So I'm happy to chat with staff about that.
My question is, when they took on this 2014 survey, what were they going to do with it? And did they do anything with it? Because it is quite lengthy from what I understand. Was it useful or just kind of informative?
It really helped set some high level priorities. And I think one of the biggest things that came out of that CHIP process was healthy starts for children. And I think there's a lot of entities that took that torch and ran forward. It was really, excuse me, a document for the community. I think it helped a lot of, like I said, I think it also came about around the time that the 1/10 of 1% behavioral health sales tax came into play. So that's why they concentrated 1/3 of that original funding into children and youth, because it really put a focus on the needs of children and making sure they have a healthy start, whether that's a good, robust Head Start program, or whether it's behavioral health services or other types of services and groups in the community.
So I think you make a good point in that a lot of the agencies in the community and a lot of the organizations in our community use that as a jumping off point as to where they need to focus their dollars and how to set their funding priorities. And so that was an important piece of work, and it's hard to prove a negative. So I don't know that nothing happened to it. I suspect that it was utilized quite a bit in our community.
We have a hand raised. Go ahead if you can hear us.
I can hear you.
Okay.
So I just wanted to thank you for the statement that you made at the beginning of the BOH committee meeting. Something that I think that many don't pay attention to is the fact that there is a huge mental health issue. And you guys have talked about this, but there's dysphoria and then there's dysmorphic. And that happens during a child's puberty sessions, which are not sessions, but puberty in life when preteen and teenagers alike, and even in young adulthood. And so when we allow the government to step in and we allow certain medical facilities, mental health facilities to take charge and say that this is how this should be and take over for those children, we're not helping them. And I heard also you spoke of suicide. We have a high suicide rate.
It's the
And
#1 cause of death in youth.
it is. Even, and I'm going to bring this up and people are probably going to get angry, but even when you think of gun deaths, the #1 gun deaths is suicide. It's not violence on another person, it's suicide. And so something that is near and dear to me is helping those that have mental health issues, whether it is sexual identity or eating disorders. I grew up with an eating disorder. and I was suicidal. And it's something that when the government steps in and they try to put in their hand over the parental rights, instead of where can we meet you at? Where can we help you? So I really hope that you would take in consideration that plea. There needs to be more support for the parents. Like, I have a friend that is dealing with this at the Longview School District. Her children haven't been taken, but they kind of squashed her parental rights and where the line is. And then it's also happening in Kelso School District. It's happening everywhere. So I would really plead to you that you hear the parents. And I appreciate, Kelly, that you spoke up. I know that this is a very raw subject, but having young ones in my family and having young ones around me and working in the community, this is a very strong, this is a hill that I will stand firmly on. And I just wanted to say that. So I just thank you for speaking up. And I think that we need to make sure that parents in our community, in our county know that this is a safe county, that they don't have to worry whether or not when they go to pick up their child, that their child's not going to be there.
Thank you
Thank
for those
you.
comments. Since it's been brought up a few times, this is an old paper, the Betty pages. Maybe people have seen that newspaper around. I picked it up one day and just reading the headlines on that day, LGBTQ youth who have undergone conversion therapy reported more than twice the rate of attempting suicide as those who did not. You would think that this paper would be biased in favor, but here's what they are saying. 40% of LGBTQ young people seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. And more than half of transgender and non-binary youth seriously considered suicide in the past year. So yeah, there's something going wrong with that. And I don't think anybody, at least in this chamber, disagrees.
Yeah, I'm probably going to say some things that are somewhat unpopular, but we have to be very careful about what exactly is the public health charter. I've heard some people say that public health is for gun control because many people die at the hand of a gun. We don't have clear lines. We are determined to eliminate every unfairness and every disease, disability. But we find that the cure is worse than the disease. Now, I'm a scientist and an engineer, and I just sit back and make observations of the world as I see it. And we're not doing very well because we think we can solve everything, so we don't solve anything. And one of the biggest concerns here and why I've been focusing on getting the people input is because if you ask a person in the street, are guns a public health problem? You would get a resounding no. But you ask those people involved in the mental health business, they say, oh, well, that might be different. I could go on for a bit, but I do want to take a look at a quote by, of all people, the Groucho Marx. And it's politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. And I think, or I hope that our Board of Health would be instrumental in stopping such atrocities as we endured during the COVID-19 lockdown and all that nonsense. That has cost us our nation. And I don't think I'm too dramatic in that.
I'd agree.
Thank you, Orin. You're right on.
So no more hands up. What's that? Anybody else? We'll adjourn the meeting at 11:13. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.